Aviation expert.
Yeah, Captain Einsetler, wanted to get your insight into that plane crash. And if you could you walk us through what those pilots might have gone through once they realized that there was something wrong?
Absolutely. It's very unusual to have issues with two separate engines. So I'm sure in the initial stages, they were assessing the first engine issue and trying to handle that from an emergency perspective. And then trying to make it back to Honolulu and having such a catastrophic situation that they had to ditch. It's just highly unusual.
Captain, how much more difficult is it to deal with a Boeing 737 jet versus a lot of the turboprop planes that we see around Hawaii?
Right. Well, the 737s, are built to last and built to withstand. My understanding is the 737-200, which is, often we use them for cargo operations. They're a little bit older aircraft. So, of course, investigators will be looking into things such as, obviously the maintenance issues, possible fueling, things like that, with the history of the aircraft as well, and go from there.
Our thoughts, obviously, this morning are with those pilots. And as we listen to that exchange with air traffic control, obviously there was some calm within their voice. They had been through a lot of experiences. How much did their being veterans and having seen a lot and experienced a lot play into them still being alive at this point?
Oh, 100%. Because when you're an experienced pilot and we're trained through history to always handle all the issues and emergencies that come our way. And you train for things like ditching, if, that's obviously one of the worst case situations. And they did an excellent job being able to land the aircraft on the water and escape out of it. And hats off to the rescuers being able to intercept them and get them right away to medical help.
When you're a pilot and you're dealing with this type of engine failure, at what point do you have to say, okay, we're not going to make it back to land, we're going to have to land this thing in the water?
Well, a lot of times it has to do with, can you maintain altitude and airspeed? So if you have one engine issue, the aircraft are built to fly on a single engine. So, depending on what their cargo loads are, they could have possibly had a very heavy load as well on board as they were going to Kahului. And so when you are down to one engine operation and trying to return to Honolulu Airport and then having a second engine issue, it becomes, can we maintain airspeed and altitude? And if it's not the case, then ditching is the only option.
Yeah, again, Captain Laura Einsetler is a pilot and an aviation expert. Captain, what goes through a pilot's mind as they make that decision to ditch?
Well, they obviously didn't have that much time if they were 15 miles off the coast before they made the initial emergency call and were on their way inbound and then had to ditch in the water about 4 miles out. So having all of those issues that they're handling, the emergencies, and trying to secure the aircraft so that it can keep flying, that they were really busy at the time. And a lot of times in those situations, you divide duties. So one pilot's doing a set of things like running checklists, securing engines, and other pilots, making the coordinations with air traffic control, etc. But very short amount of time for a lot of things for them to have to handle. And thankfully, they had the ocean there to be able to ditch into.
Captain, have you ever had to deal with something similar like this?
Well, ditching is definitely an unusual. Like I said, it's your last option, really. You always first want to maintain trying to secure and keep the aircraft safe and obviously keep yourself, the cargo, the passengers on board safe. And so as you're assessing those situations, whether, there's other things that you can do, having experience, there's so many different events and training that goes through your mind at that time so that you can best handle the situation and try to safely bring the aircraft back to the airport. So this was definitely a catastrophic situation that they were handling and did a nice job, at least getting it into the water and getting themselves safely out.
Our understanding is that you yourself flew 737s. Something that we found out this morning, the plane was built in 1975. How common is that?
That's considered fairly, it's a older aircraft, and so the part of the investigators will, aspects they'll be looking to see, like I said, the kind of the maintenance history, if that there was any sort of indications about things. But the fact that it was both engines having issues, that kind of gives them an initial start. The trick's going to be, can they keep the aircraft, or is the aircraft kind of sinking down in, and then can they recover the aircraft to do those investigative techniques that they have. Mm-hmm.
In hearing the circumstances of this TransAir flight this morning and crash, were you surprised that the two pilots were able to survive?
No, especially because if they're used to flying out of the island, so then that's something that you're going to always be thinking as a consideration. You have the ocean right there. But again, it's not something that's usual by any means, but that's part of our training, is handling the different situations. So just the fact that they're used to island flying and the way that the islands are, and the airflows and the ocean waves and things like that, that definitely played into their ability to handle the situation the way they did.
Yeah, and of course our thoughts are with them, and of course we wish them a speedy recovery. Captain Laura Einsetler is a pilot and aviation expert. Thanks for shedding some light and giving us some perspective this morning.
Thank you, Stephen, Grace, and all your listeners. Thank you so much, and be safe.
Thank you, Captain.
You as well. All right, 7:39. We're going to take a short break and be back.